And you're very welcome back to the last half hour of Northside Today. Now we're going to be talking to Barrister at Law, Darren Lawler. And Darren, good afternoon to you, and thanks for taking our call this morning, or this afternoon.
Good afternoon, thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Now, Darren, I'm reading here that you wanted the Taoiseach, Micheál Martin, to plant a tree in honour of all those people who have died from the coronavirus over the last year. Why were you looking for this, if you don't mind me asking you?
Well, the whole thing started off with the Keogh family long before I came on board. And they wanted to do a national memorial forest in Ireland for everybody affected by COVID-19. Mm-hmm. And I had spoken to John Keogh, and his sister Amanda, who's a healthcare worker, had died from COVID. And John was very passionate about this. So what I suggested to John was, we're in the middle of an emergency, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And although the National Memorial Forest is very important, it would be something possibly in Dublin. So maybe if we were to write to every mayor around the country, and we asked them to put a tree in every town to remember their local community all affected by COVID-19, and that's what we did. So we started off with the President. We had written to the President, and we had written to the Dublin Lord Mayor, and then what we did was last week we had written to the Taoiseach to ask him to not to forget to remember everybody on October 1st. Mm-hmm. So the response to date has been very positive. We have confirmation from Waterford, Laois, St James's Hospital at 1 o'clock today. We have Fingal, Longford, Roscommon, Dunleary, Rathdown, Dublin South, Limerick, Leitrim, Mayo, Donegal. So all these people have confirmed with myself and John that they're going to remember everybody on this day, which is today. The reason for the Taoiseach was the last Lord Mayor of Dublin, I think her name was Miss Chew, had put benches all around Dublin. And we were conscious of the fact that's something else for Dublin again. We wanted something for everybody in the country. So we wrote to the Taoiseach, and I asked him, would he plant something on the grounds of Dáil Éireann to remember everybody in Ireland. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we did receive an acknowledgement, but nothing back from the Taoiseach confirming anything. Right. So a bit disappointed about that.
Yeah. So can I ask you, Darren, your own family, am I right in thinking that you were affected by the coronavirus as well?
We were affected like many people in the same way. Everything was obviously very personal to us. Yeah. My wife is Assistant Director of Nursing of St James's Hospital, Fiona Gray, and Fiona used to come home from work every day. She'd have to get undressed in the hall. She couldn't hug the girls for days, and because nobody knew much about this virus at the time, they're still trying to grapple with what it does and what it can and can't do. But at the time we were very, very cautious. My mum and dad, my dad was in his early 70s, my mum was in her early 70s, and my mum was diagnosed with COVID-19 on the 24th of January this year, and she was taken into the Mater Hospital. Unfortunately, a week after, my mum was given 3 days to live, and so it was a very difficult time for us. We had one phone call we had to make on the Friday night. The Mater says, ring your mum, you won't get to speak to her again. And we were effectively ringing her to cheer her on. Mm-hmm. My dad was still at home. He was at home on his own. He was a close contact. And he was a confirmed case of COVID a couple of days later. So my wife Fiona, although she wasn't a close contact of my dad, she would have to leave his food in the garden and make sure he was looked after, because he really depended a lot on my mum. So on the Monday, my dad was taken into the Mater Hospital, and on the Friday, my dad passed away. So from the Monday to the Friday, my mum very slowly started coming out of the dark cloud she was in. But she didn't know my dad was in the hospital.
All right.
She was wondering why my dad wasn't answering the phone. And we had to tell her. So she hadn't seen him in a couple of weeks. And then they got to see each other then. There's a great photograph published by the Irish Times and the Mirror, and RTE published it, of my mum and dad sitting together, both critical of COVID-19 on just hours before my dad had passed away.
Yeah. And your dad's name was Peter?
My dad, Peter Lawler. He was a bus driver.
He was a bus driver, and he was also a Leeds United fan.
He was a Leeds United fan, and Leeds United took great precedence over the in the funeral, as we know, people had closed coffins. Many of our family and friends were cremated. And so we had to dress the coffin accordingly, obviously in the rules with the church, to make sure we don't make too much of a fanfare over it. But because we couldn't get to see my dad laid out, and many people couldn't get to see their fathers, mothers, friends, relatives laid out, we had dressed his coffin in Legionitis. So
lovely.
That's,
yeah, and because we were doing a little bit of research back in the office there, and like, he was a Leeds United fan, but he was, from what we hear, he was a very good handyman around the house.
Oh, he was great. If you had a puncture, you'd call down to 26 Griffith Close, where my dad lived, and you would you get the puncture fixed. He'd put the washing machine in. He would hang the line. He was always there. He was just that pillar of the community. But he was one who kind of stood in the background. Yeah. He wasn't one for taking praise all the time, but he just loved helping people. And when we went public about my mum and dad's illness and my dad passing away, it was something that, although my dad wanted to be in the background of everything, it would have been something he would have wanted to help everybody to realise that this is something that can come and get you, regardless whether you support Leeds United, whether you're a U2 fan, whether you have lots of money, or whether you're somebody who has, maybe additional needs, or somebody who lives on the streets, or somebody in full health. COVID will select its victims.
Exactly.
And nobody is on notice of this,
Nobody is. And I just finished. How long was he in CIE for?
Oh God, we were trying to count that up. He was there for a long time. I couldn't even put a figure on it. He'd be there for well over 20 years.
Wow.
30 years, I would say. He was mainly on the 40s, and he used to he started off when I was young, at the 20s and the 22 and the 22A in Harbour.
Yeah.
And he used to be a bus conductor. Then he became the driver, and then he did the 20s, the 22As. Then he moved to the 40s and the 19s. He was mainly on the 40s,
Yeah.
So he was kind of a bit of a celebrity around Finglas, because everybody knew as the man with the red hair, always a smiling face, always getting off the bus to help people on,
Yeah. Did he have a favourite song?
Oh, he had Peggy Gordon, the Paddy Riley version. He loved
lovely.
that. And I Love You So by Perry Como.
Perry Como.
And we had those at the funeral. Yeah, he absolutely loved them. He'd be in the kitchen. I used to be with bands for most of my life. I used to be with Aslan as a production manager.
Oh, lovely.
I was with Mickey Hart as Hart production manager before I went back to college. And I remember Mickey Hart would be playing the Helix, and my dad would be in the kitchen ironing his trousers and things, while Mickey was upstairs getting changed. You know? And we would have people in the house, like the four of us, and Aslan would be there to the house. And he was just somebody who loved music, but he just had a particular fondness for Peggy Gordon, which is the Paddy Riley version. Yeah. And he also had a great fondness for And I Love You So by Perry Como.
Lovely song. I like to try and sing that myself from time to time. I actually have a track lined up for later on for your dad, and it's Patsy Watchhorn, and it's Dublin in 1962. It's a lovely song. So go back to the tree planting. The tree planting would have been taking place today, October the 1st.
The tree planting would have been taking place today, October the 1st, and I actually seen one of the trees which is going to be unveiled. I sent a photograph, and that is in Roscommon at the moment. And what I have said to people was, I want this to be about the people of the community and not about me. So even at St James's Hospital, I'm not turning up there at 1:30 today. My wife Fiona Gray will be there, and she will unveil the tree with the CEO Mary Day and the rest of their colleagues. But the tree planting is, we wanted to say that, we need something to help people through the darkness, and as time passes, our memories fade. So if the memories are kind of enshrined in every branch of every tree, they will grow over time, and it's somewhere to go to remember, because my dad was cremated and he wanted to be cremated, but if I had a choice, it was the worst decision ever, because we've no place to go.
I understand.
We've no graveyard to go to. And the cremations were, there are people just lining up to be cremated, and unfortunately that's how sad it is. And that's the way it was in my dad's funeral, unfortunately. So the tree will hopefully help people not forget to remember, and hopefully the government will do a national memorial forest to remember everybody. But the trees in every town fantastic response so far. And even Laois are doing a memorial garden, they have confirmed. And Waterford are actually doing their one in November, they have confirmed. And the Lord Mayor, although she turned our request down, she's doing her own thing after Christmas, in the new year. And so look, it's something that we've carried to a level, and we're asking everybody who has the power to embrace it. Embrace it, plant a tree, and remember your community.
Indeed. But perhaps throughout the country, when the trees are being planted, that if someone was to take a photograph, and maybe all those photographs of the trees all over the country go up on some kind of a Facebook page or something like that. And
well, there is a Facebook page. There's the National Memorial Forest, which was created by John Keogh. And it'd be important to say that John Keogh was like the seed of this idea for the National Memorial Forest. When I came on board, I just we should just bring it down just a bit and put a tree in every county. So the National Memorial Forest Facebook page is still there.
Right.
That's, if I can put it like John's baby, John's idea, and he wants to get this big National Memorial Forest done. So I'm sure that John would love to see people posting trees on the Facebook page, photographs of trees, just to let people see how successful we were.
Indeed.
In helping the communities not forget, remember,
Yeah. My own daughter is in St. James's Hospital, and one of the things that I was been saying to her over the last year is that, come next March when St. Patrick's Day comes along, whether there's going to be a parade or not, I don't know. But I'd love to see in the parade, instead of all the floats of, and I'm not knocking anything that's been in the parade over the last couple of years, but what I'd like to see in marching is the people that were behind the scenes there doing the work, the doctors, the nurses, the porters, the people from the kitchens in the hospitals, the shop workers, the fire brigade, the Gardaí, all those services that all had to step up and help us out when we really needed it, and let them march down our streets and cheer them on.
I think that's a wonderful idea, because what happened, the people on the front line kept this country open when we had to keep all our doors shut. They were the people who opened the shops. They were the people who were the prison service, the courts and Garda Síochána, nurses, doctors, and particularly nurses and doctors and dentists and GPs, because regardless of what was wrong with you, toothache, sore leg, they'd be your first point of call, and they were at risk because they were meeting so many people on so many occasions. And it's important to remember every single person, because I had to pass through Garda checkpoints going into work so they'd know where I was going.
Yes.
So I was an essential worker. And so I'm saying that everybody who had to pass through those checkpoints to go to work and to keep this country open, to keep us all safe, all have to be remembered. And we need to start with our health service. Maybe a sum of money is appropriate, maybe more time off, but they need more staff. We need a properly funded service. The people in St. James's Hospital, my dad was attended St. James's Hospital the last 10 years of his life. Unfortunately, he died in a matter because the ambulance brought him there. But the level of care in that centre of excellence is incredible. But the level of care comes from the people who provide the care, and that starts when you walk into St. James's Hospital. You're greeted at the desk by Shirley, who sits on reception, and they're the first people that you meet. And then you'll see the porters and the people serving the tea, the nurses, the doctors, and they're very important places, because a hospital is not only some place where you go to be cured or to be diagnosed. Some people go to hospitals to die, So it's very, very important that we keep them all comfortable, and that's exactly what our health services have done. They've kept me and everybody comfortable and assured during this awful emergency.
Indeed. So, as I say, maybe hopefully somebody might take that on board regarding St. Patrick's Day parade. It's a small thing, but it's a recognition that we can cheer our own on, who have done, as you say, fantastic work over the last...
It's an incredible idea, and it's something, and take my hat off, it's something I haven't thought of, I haven't looked that far ahead, but I think Near FM, they came up with the idea. They're publicly putting it out now, and I think the government have to take recognition of it. And of course, we need everybody who was on that front line, whether you were right out in front or just standing back a slight bit. They all have to be acknowledged and remembered. We have deaths of over 5,000 people. On the news, RTE, TV3, many media networks have brought us the sad news, but important news of how COVID is affecting everybody. So all those numbers come from people who have passed away. And all those people who have passed away have done so maybe in silence, maybe on alone, but still under the fantastic care of people in our health services. And it's just so important that we don't forget to remember our health services. It's been underfunded for such a long time. The Taoiseach now used to be the Minister for Health. We have had promise after promise. So hopefully this is something now which will take precedence, have a proper health service, but definitely your proposals, Patrick's Day, they're the Grand Marshals of the country.
Yeah,
every day during this pandemic.
Lovely. Darren, we're going to leave it there. And condolences to you and your family on your dad. And hopefully, anyway, today will be a success in the tree planting. And we'll await and see what happens down the road regarding if there is something happens on St. Patrick's Day. I did say I had Patsy Watchhorn on the table here. So that's what we're going to play for your dad, if you don't mind.
You're very, very kind, and thank you for taking the time to ring us. And I will be promoting your idea about St. Patrick's Day. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Okay.
I think it's a wonderful idea.
Lovely. Nice to talk to you, Dan.